Sophia Carson, we're about to get loud.
Yeah, yeah, we are.
I want to launch right into this single. It's called Loud, and it's about empowering women, taking up space, telling them to use their voices. Did you come from a loud family? Tell me about the women who raised you.
I came from a long line of loud women, and I feel so grateful and honored to have been raised by them. I was raised by a mother who fearlessly taught her daughters to be loud and to believe that as women, we are synonymous with strength. And I honestly thank my lucky stars every day for that.
That's beautiful, because that's another thing. I kind of hate it when people position women as being like, oh, she's such an outlier. She's such a strong woman. I'm like, well,
I know.
no, that's not really how that works.
It's so
You know?
true. It hit me a couple years ago when I would even catch myself saying that I love to play strong women. And I was like, wait a second, that's implying that women aren't strong.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Have you seen
When it's the
Encanto?
complete opposite. I haven't seen Encanto. I have to see it.
Oh my God,
I know.
Sophia.
I know. I have to see it this weekend. I have to see it because I grew up with the works of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. My family's from Colombia. So I have to see it this weekend.
That's why I thought you'd be first on the list. Okay, well, I don't know if you know the story, but there's a family, and everyone in the family has a special power. And there's one sister who's super strong. There's another sister who can just make flowers, just grow everywhere. Anyway, the character that's super strong, her toys have been outselling every other toy in the series, despite her not being the principal character. And I think it just goes to show how much young girls want to be known as strong and powerful and brutish and all that sort of stuff. It's sick. It's sick. Anyway.
It's amazing. Yeah.
We go back on. So, okay, undoubtedly you would be a role model to a whole generation of young girls as well. You know, you've seen this onslaught of video responses to Loud. Girls obviously dress up as your character from Descendants Evie for Halloween. When you were little, who was your pop culture role model? Who did you look up to?
I, like so many girls, when I was little, my first role models were Disney princesses. But my favorite one, which is not surprising considering how I was raised and who I am, was Belle. And it's because Belle wasn't like the other princesses. She didn't care to be saved by a prince. She had no interest in Gaston. She wanted to be free, and she wanted to educate herself and her mind. And I was always kind of drawn to that. And I was always also drawn to princesses like Mulan. And those were my first role models. And then growing up in music, I kind of grew up fast in the musical sense that I was an old soul. And like, for instance, I would sing Don't Cry for Me, Argentina by Evita. So like, I just always liked things that were not something that a 5-year-old should be singing. But I grew up.
That's a big song for a 5-year-old.
There's a video of me singing it in my living room. I don't know why I'm wearing a bathing suit and a bandana, but those are the choices that I made. And I was just belting it out in my living room. But I always gravitated towards women like Cher. Like, I remember being little and watching Cher's concerts and telling my mom, I need to put on concerts like that one day. And women like Barbara Streisand. And I owe a lot of this to my mom, who introduced me to all of these women. And they were just trailblazers and women who redefined what it was to be a woman in the industry. And they were so much more than just a singer. They were songwriters, directors, producers, Oscar winners, activists. So those were kind of my role models.
I love that. Yeah, like the Jane Fondas of the world.
Exactly. Jane Fonda, iconic.
Huge. Yeah. As a woman in entertainment, I know that it can be kind of really hard to take up space, particularly when it's super early on in your career. When you were at the beginning, did you find that struggle? Even maybe now, do you find that's something you relate to?
Absolutely. Especially in the beginning of my career. Luckily, over the last 5-6 years that I've been in this business, we've seen quite a shift in the role of women in the industry, and just overall in the world. There's been a big shift, thankfully. But in the beginning, I remember even before I got my first role with Evie, you know, because I was raised the way that I was raised to always stand for what I believed in, and that nothing was worth sacrificing who you are. And in the business, I was often offered roles or auditions or songs that weren't in line with who I was as a woman, and weren't the stories that I wanted to tell, because oftentimes they were written by or stories told by men, and they were derogatory towards women. And I just found myself incapable of lending my voice and my body to that. And it was very difficult for people, especially men in the industry, to understand why I would say no to an opportunity that could bring me quick fame. But luckily, over time, the industry changed, and it became respectable or admirable to be a woman who always stood for what she believed in. And I'm grateful for that shift, and for all of the women who made choices like that, and you know, who have allowed us to be where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really fickle industry to be in, particularly for women. I feel like right now there's a lot of emphasis on like aging women in the entertainment industry, and you see people like Meryl Streep being offered like 3 witches roles in 1 year and things like that, and turning them down because she also has a similar thing, being like, just because I've suddenly hit 40 or 50 doesn't mean I have to fit this archetype that's always been. Yeah.
Correct.
So you're quite well known from your work as an actress, you know, from the Pretty Little Liars spin-off, Descendants, Feel the Beat, so many more. And obviously, as an actor, you play a character, but that's not necessarily the case with music. And you're also an intensely private person when it comes to putting your personal life online. Do you get scared by the vulnerability in music?
It's interesting because I should be. Right?
Yeah.
Because I am a very private person when it comes to my personal life, and when it comes to especially my romantic life. And for some reason in music, and I've actually always been a private person, even before fame entered the story. Like even with my friends and my family, I've always been a private person in terms of sharing what I feel, or even like what's going on in my life romantically. It's always been scary for me to say things out loud because they become real, but for some reason I've always been able to sing about them. And I don't know what it is about music that they feel safer there, but I will say that for many years I found it easier to write songs based on other people's stories rather than stuff that had happened to me. And it wasn't until this last year that I was able to finally do that and like crack open something inside of me. Because even then I was still scared.
What do you think flicked that switch? What made you be able to, you know, put your stories out there rather than dipping into a character of someone else?
I think the last couple of years have been challenging for the world and for each of us personally.
Yeah.
And it's made us have to kind of look at ourselves and look in the mirror and really know who we are. And I think the last couple of years, over the last 2 years, I really grew as a person, went through an emotional journey that I think also tapped into parts of myself that I hadn't tapped into before, that I think I had walled up. And in doing so, you know, a lot of walls crumbled down, not always in the most not painful way, but hey, we're here. And it allowed for music to be born from that as well.
It's the beauty in the chaos.
Truly.
It
is the beauty in the chaos. Yeah.
So over this last year, you've been dipping more into the personal well. You've been feeding us singles for the past few years. Does this mean that there's perhaps an EP or an album on the horizon?
This is definitely part of a bigger story that I have been writing that I will be sharing with the world soon.
Okay, I like the sound of that. That's diplomatic of you.
Yeah.
Do you ever get overwhelmed by all the balls that you're juggling? What is your key to productivity?
Yes, I do. Every day sometimes. Because, you know, it's interesting and really exciting to be able to be a part of so many things and to do so many things that I love. And I also don't know how to do them halfway. Like, I don't know how to not pour every inch of my heart into everything that I do, no matter how big or small it is, whether it's like preparing an Instagram post to shooting a movie. Like, I've never known how to not pour my heart into something, which I think is only a good thing. But yeah, it's a beautiful juggle to juggle between being a creative, a songwriter, or an actor, which requires two very different parts of you and can always coexist at once, right? Because like you said, when I'm acting, I'm telling someone else's story and I try to disconnect from who I am. But when I'm writing songs, I have to dig deeper into who I am as a person. And also being a big part of, the business aspect of my career and the producing aspect of film. So it's an interesting juggle. And I find that what I have to do is when I do have to be creative, I have to give myself that space. And that means really just turning off my phone. When I'm in the studio, I don't look at my phone for however many hours that needs to be. And my team knows that, when I'm in the studio, that's the priority. And when I'm shooting a film, it's the same. I completely disconnect from my life, from the world, from any business that is happening. And I just immerse myself completely into the character so I can, create freely.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Switching off is a large part of,
it is
giving you space to reflect, and reflect breeds creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not easy to turn off because I'm so controlling and I need to be a part of everything that I do so deeply. So sometimes my mom is always the one, literally says, Sophia, switch off. And I'm like, okay, switching off.
I love that. So what does downtime look like for you when you're not working on anything creative? Are you a reader? Downtime, are you a walker?
I'm a walker. I'm a walker, and I discovered that through the pandemic. I've always loved walking, but LA has never been a walkable city for me because whenever I've shot movies, I've shot in cities like Toronto or cities where walking is much more of a thing. So I've always walked a lot. And then when the pandemic hit, I decided to make LA a walking city for me. So I found my little roots. So walking and exercise is a big part of I guess my me time. And I live with my sister, so spending time with my sister truly is like the best thing. Like just now I had a couple minutes between interviews. I just went and I chilled with her and our dog Joey for a second. It's great. And I'm really trying to prioritize when I do have downtime to make something of it this year and to spend more time with friends. And I'm trying to make that a priority a little bit more this year.
Again, I think it's that reflection from the past years of craziness. Sophia, thank you so much for sharing this song with us. And I can't wait for us to get loud together.
Thank you so much for your time. Ditto.